Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 653 for the 8th of December. Let's start off with the Southern Front from the Kherson Front. At the Kherson Front, there is no updates in terms of any kind of fighting and whatnot. Most probably the Ukrainians are definitely still at Krinky. Russia is still bombarding them, but generally there's no geolocation or whatsoever. There's no assault. Probably due to all the bombardments, the Ukrainians might find it hard to actually launch out. For those that did not watch yesterday's SITREP, the Ukrainians have done some mining operation. They planted mines on the western approach of the village. So the Russians, if they are trying to attack this way, there are minefields. So not sure how big is the minefield. Probably not very big, but definitely they are. The planting of mines shows that they really want to stay there. There is a geolocation of Russian using air to surface missiles hitting Ukrainian some kind of this location where they use this warehouse or something as a maybe operational base or something, and then got hit at Tokarivka. And that's all from the Kherson Front. We move on over at the Zaporizhzhia Front. At the Zaporizhzhia Front, at the Orkiv sector, the Russian forces continue the attack on the western part of Verbove. Based on, as per yesterday's report, according to the Russians, they have already went all the way to the Surovikin line on the western part of Verbove. On the Ukrainian map, this is still not updated just yet. So yesterday I also mentioned about the recovery of a Leopard 2 tank by the Russians. The location is around here. This is as per a video of the geolocation of the location. This is posted by Ryba at this position. So this also shows that the Russians actually have recovered this tree line, and there's a high chance that the Ukrainians are not even at this tree line. They're probably over here. This tree line is probably already cleared of Ukrainian forces. The main reason being because if the tank is being recovered here, I doubt there are Ukrainian forces over here, because they would have been able to fire at any vehicles or anything that is trying to recover this Leopard tank. So this is why I think that the Ukrainians may not be at this tree line anymore. They might have already redrawn to a further location, whereas this area here is actually a gray zone, with the Russians already swarming around this area here as they collect the Leopard 2 tank. So this also signifies that the Ukrainians have been pushed back at Robotine, and this is actually corroborating the reporting over the past few days, where the Russians are the one on the initiative. There is no reports of Ukrainian attack over at Robotine. So moving away from this area here, there is another geolocation just on the eastern part of Sharifny or western part of Myrny. This is by Creamy Caprice. It was some artillery battle where Ukrainian artillery system got hit within this tree line, and then there was some kind of secondary explosion, which is much bigger than the initial explosion. So this only showed that there is a positional warfare around this front line. So nothing very significant per se. And then that's it from the Zaporizhzhia Front. We do not have any actions reported in the Velika Novosilka sector, so it went quiet, which also really illustrate how much weakened the Ukrainian forces has become, because this is actually originally one of the main thrust south of towards the southern part of Velika Novosilka sector. Over at the Donetsk Front, this is the Donetsk Front. As you can see, the Donetsk Front, the Russians seems to have launched some kind of a major operation around this area here. But generally, this sector is considered one. This is another different sector. Generally speaking, this even in the Russian reports, these are usually separated. Like it might be commanded by different commands. So there is fighting reported at Voleda, Mikhailsky, over in the Solotky region towards Novomikhailivka, in the Boyeda region, Marinka, as well as Krasnohorivka. There is no particular interesting thing per se in this assault, especially the ones over in the Voleda region and Mikhailsky. This is probably just probing actions. The one at Solotky, this particular one is not exactly clear if it's a continuation like a day 2 of the operation, because the report might be copying and pasting what they have reported into the main summary by the on the Russian side. So we have to wait for another day or two to determine if this is a sustained assault operation by the Russians. And in terms of Boyeda, at the Boyeda region, the Ukrainian mapping seems to be more accurate, so most likely the front line is around this. So when we talk about battle at Boyeda, most likely the Russians are still around this area here. I will wait if I can see any pro-Russian mapping to show this in a more clearer way, then I can clean up. But generally, I'm waiting only on Ryba, because I'm keeping myself to just a few sources, so that that I trust, and then I can not spend too much time on the mapping, because generally the mapping are more or less pretty similar, just that I prefer to stick to the sources that I've trusted over the year or two. So the most significant, I would say, is just the fighting towards Krasnohorivka. This is very curious. I'm still waiting to see what exactly is this about. The reports coming from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, so do have to take it a pinch of salt. Sometimes it might be just some artillery or no fire mission, and then they report it as an attack. But it's also an attack. No, it's not wrong actually. Over at the Avdiivka Front, this is the Avdiivka Front. At the Avdiivka Front, we have the Russians continuing their Avdiivka offensive as per usual. There is no Ukrainian assault or counterattack being reported. It is the Russians on the initiative, with the fighting towards Novokalinove in the eastern part of Novobakhmutivka, at Stepove, at the coke plant over in the southern part of Avdiivka, and towards Donetsk and Povomaisky. There is some geolocation over in the southern side. There is a geolocation of Ukrainian forces over at this particular building over here. So this attack by FPV drone, which also shows that the Ukrainians have continued to stay at this position. They did not do what I thought they would do, withdrawing to another line of defense, most likely because the Russians did not dare to push in, because once they push into the forest, they run the risk of getting ambushed, because it's forest. So the Russians probably are pretty happy with holding a line around the industrial zone, and most likely it's very limited lines, as this is a very blown out area. So the Ukrainians still able to hold a certain position near to the forest region, and probably can do some hit and run. But they're getting hunted by FPV drones as well. So very positional warfare over in the southern part. We have nothing much to report over in the Povomaisky Tonenke region. There is geolocation of Russian forces at the water treatment plant. So you can see this is the water treatment plant. So the Russian forces is geolocated, and they were attacked by, I think, FPV drones. So let me see. Yeah, I'm not sure. Shelling, so should be artillery. So as a result, which means that we have confirmed that the Russians have captured the water treatment plant. Previously, we have rumors based on reports that the Russians have already pushed down in this area here, and now we have this corroboration by this geolocation, so we can confirm as such the Ukrainian front line has been pushed back to reflect this development. There is another geolocation over at Stepove. This is a geolocation of Russian forces attacked by Ukrainian FPV drones. So, which means the Russians did have some kind of a foothold now in the eastern part of Stepove. So we have adjusted the front line accordingly. So, and then that's it over for the Avdiivka Front. Over at the New York Front, we have a report, part of Ryba, talking about fighting in the direction of Pivnishny. I did try to check, because they were talking about Avdiivka region, and then they suddenly talk about Pivnishny. And I did try to see if it's something, the location that was not listed on the map. I tried to search through a few mappings, a few public maps, including the Russians what is it map called, Yandex. I tried to check Yandex. I tried to try street maps. What is it called? Open street maps. I cannot find a Pivnishny around this area here. The closest Pivnishny that only appear on the OpenStreetMap was some forest region around this area here, which doesn't make sense to use that, because we have much more prominent landmarks like Krutabalka, Kashtanove, correct, or Yasinovata. So it don't make sense to call up some very obscure location. So the only obvious one is Pivnishny over here. So I have mapped it around here, showing that the Russians or there is some sort of clash around near Pivnishny. So that's it from the New York Front. We move into the Bakhmut Front. So this is Bakhmut city. At the Bakhmut Front, in the southern flank, the Russian forces continue their counter-offensive or counter-offensive. Not sure what you want to call it, or being rude. Being rude. Offensive is rude. Being rude. So the Russians continue to be rude to Ivanivsky. They are being rude to Klishchievka and being rude to Andriivka. And the Ukrainian forces over here is very offended. They find that the Russians are really rude about this. Over in the northern flank of the Bakhmut Front, the Russian forces attack in the area of Ivanivsky. According to the reports coming from Ryba, they say that the Russian forces is mopping up in the region of the Bakhmutsky Autodrome. So probably is this racing track, and I believe that this looks also like some kind of an aerodrome. This look like some kind of a temporary airfield kind of thing. So I'm not sure. So anyway, they are fighting in this area here, and probably around this area, and they are also clearing the nursery region around this in the north of this highway. So the Russians are still on the move. And then further up north, the Russians now has been reported by Ryba to be moving towards Ryhorivka and Orikovo-Vasilivka. So this Orikovo-Vasilivka, they're moving towards that, and towards Ryhorivka, they are also attacking Bodanivka. And according to Ryba, they say that they pretty much have recovered most of the furthest advancement that Wagner forces have ever done. And this is also what I mentioned yesterday. The Russian forces basically have taken ground much faster than what the Wagner forces was able to do. But of course, we also have to qualify that the Wagner forces were fighting a much more complete Ukrainian armed forces at the height of the Ukrainian armed forces' strength. So now the Russian military is now fighting a totally wear out Ukrainian armed forces. But of course, the wearing out of these Ukrainian armed forces have a large part to do with the Russian military's success in playing a defensive war against the Ukrainian counteroffensive. So there is other geolocation over at Bodanivka. There is a Lancet strike on a infantry fighting vehicle on the southern part of Bodanivka. So even if the front line is not exactly very far away, it's just 1 to 2 kilometers away from the front line, Lancets can also be a huge threat to Ukrainian vehicles. So Lancers are usually not used on infantry. They're used on artillery system generally, and they are also used on tanks and armored vehicles. So, and radar stations, counter artillery, radar stations, communication vehicles, command vehicles. So Lancers are usually targeting high value targets. So so that's it. Over in the north, over the Zeleniansky region, I cannot say this is actually fighting, but there is a change in terms of the mapping at Zeleniansky. I was looking at Deep State US mapping. Previously, our mapping is a bit different. Let me overlay. You can see that the Russian mapping was here. This is where we mapped. But now, if you look at the mapping, it changed to to this new line. And so Deep State UA has basically considered that this tree line around here has been captured by the Russian forces, and the Russian forces have seemingly expanded their control around this area here. During the counteroffensive, the Ukrainians actually did put a lot of pressure around this forest line over here along the highway, and it is inconceivable for me that the Ukrainians actually lost this position. So which means that there was some fighting reported around. There was some fighting at Zeleniansky that was not reported, that caught me unaware. And the previous report was on the 22nd of September. So it is quite some time ago. So that's it from the Bakhmut Front. We move into the Siversk Front, this Siversk city. There is report of fighting over at Sprny. According to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, they say that the Russians tried to attack in the Sprny region. I'm not sure in which vector. We shall continue to monitor and see if this this will continue, as the Siversk offensive seems to have died out. I thought that so no, but we have to also take note that the Siversk offensive is the idea that there was an offensive is based on what the Ukrainian Defense Ministry say. So over at the Kreminna Front, the Ukrainian forces is launching an attack in the southern sector of the Zaporizhzhia Forestry, while the Russians are attacking towards Terny and Yampolivka. There was possibility of an attack in the northern part of Toske, but it was not mentioned in text. It's only drawn by Ryba on this mapping. So just take note that there is this possibility. So yeah, so the fighting goes on over the Kreminna Front. There is nothing particularly unique to talk about. Over at the Svatove Front, there were some frontline changes. Over in the western part of Kreminna, there is some changes in terms of the mapping. You will see that the previous mapping, the Ukrainian have actually this entire tree line around here. But as I checked through the Deep State UA's mapping, it seems that the Ukrainians have actually lost the entire area here. They have lost the entire tree line. In fact, they lost another tree line around here, and they have redrawn to this new line around here. And the Russians have actually pushed significantly around this area here. And this, of course, also came as a surprise to me, because the last reported fighting was reported on the 16th of August in the western part of Kreminna. And Novoyihorivka was in September. Novoyihorivka itself was on 1 month ago in the early November. So probably I'm not very attentive with the Deep State US mapping. So because I do check time to time, I don't check on the daily basis. I only check based on their mapping and their reports on their Telegram channel. So I'm not sure when this was changed, but it's okay. It's not very, it doesn't change a lot in a sense. It just changed in terms of a tactical sense. We shall continue to monitor and see. That's all from the Svatove Front. Over at the Kupyansk Front, we see the return of the fighting reported, the Russian attack at Ivanivka. So after days of Ukrainian attack from the 5th to the 6th of December, we see the Russians returning the favor over at Ivanivka. The Russians also continue their assault over in the Sinkivka region. Ukrainians continue to counterattack at Sinkivka, as well as in the south of Liman Pershi, or western part of Sinkivka. There's the geolocation of a Ukrainian armored vehicle, a tank, that was hiding beneath this bridge that got hit by a lancet. This is also a reflection of the danger of modern warfare, where drones can actually maneuver and go from an angle where artillery shells can't. In fact, they can even maneuver in a way that anti-tank guided missiles can't. The anti-tank guided missiles are generally still move in a straight line. Even if they can move a bit, they can be controlled by the TV or remote control, but it's still very limited. It's unlike what a drone can do. So the Lancet drone loitered around and found the target, go under the bridge. It still can destroy a totally entrenched vehicles. So that's very, very scary. So that's it. This is the summary for the day of 653 for the 8th of December. Do press the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next update.